Hi everyone, and welcome to the next installment showing pages of this unique scrapbook that I found at a flea market a while back. I'm going to start out with Paul McCartney, full ad for a new single, Mary Had a Little Lamb, a single record from your old chum's Wings. There's an ad for Band on the Run. Where the star action is. The Billboard Hot 100. See, I love stuff like this. Now, this is really cool because this is a B-side advertisement for the B-side, I think, of Helen Wheels. Meet that old country dreamer. Yeah, I'm not so big on when magazine articles are cut out with the covers and the article. Well, I suppose it was more practical to this person than keeping the entire magazine. Okay, Red Rose Speedway, which is not a favorite album of mine, folks. I'm sorry. I'm curious what this person says here. Um, Best effort from McCartney since his break with the Beatles, featuring powerful rock material as well as the great ballads. Well, these days, you see, I think most fans think that Ram is really his best album in the early days. But back then, nobody did really liked Ram. Ram was kind of like thought of as weak McCartney. So it says here, McCartney death in quotes gets disc coverage is dearth. The rumors of the death of Beatle Paul McCartney is beginning to spark disc coverage. Right, there was a song called The Ballad of Paul that somebody put out on MGM Records. I remember some of those. Death pushes Beatles sales. Top albums of 1974. This is weird. Number one is Tubular Bells by Mike Oldfield from The Exorcist. Band on the Run. Dark Side of the Moon. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. Etc. Sting soundtrack. Yeesh. Okay, here's a review of Band on the Run, Paul McCartney and Wings. In terms of sheer recorded output, prolific Paul McCartney has quite outpaced the other ex-Beatles, but he has paid a high artistic price for that dubious distinction. On this sixth solo album, for example, Picasso's last words, "Drink to Me," seem nothing more than thank you very much, opportunistic and triflingly shallow in its lack of attempted insights, poetic imagery, or any redeeming feature which could possibly justify the confiscation of Picasso's name or last words. What a shabby effort it represents when compared to the emphatic artistic homage of a song like Don McLean's Vincent to Van Gogh. It is almost like sophomoric name-dropping when there is no thematic follow-through, as occurs again in 1985, a pointless song that completely ignores the implication of its title. Wait a minute now, 1985 is a great classic in my eyes. But I've always despised Picasso's last words, and that's one of the reasons why Band on the Run, though a really excellent album overall, it has its rough patches in it. In Jet, the lyrics and theme are downright obscure, among other lines that tend to elicit a blink and a "What?" Is Jet, I thought the Major was a lady suffragette. It's true. It's a great song, great rock, I love it. It's part of my youth, but really the lyrics. And in Mrs. Vanderbilt, a catchy primitive number inspired by one of McCartney's recording locations, etc., etc. The references to Mrs. Vanderbilt and Mrs. Washington as the antagonists of the piece are surely wasted on these ears. So, this sixth album, though well-paced, expertly recorded, and laden with typically catchy McCartney melodies, still suffers, like most of its predecessors, from a slapdash, planned obsolescence approach to songwriting that presumably meets A&M rock standards, but hardly becomes a great pop composer. I think it's very hard on the album overall as a whole, personally. But, it's true. McCartney got slammed a lot in those days. You know. There we go. Linda with Paul. He's got the jukebox tag. Now they're reviewing the song Letting Go by Wings, which I love this song, so let's see what they say. This is one of my very favorite McCartney songs. Letting Go, one of the less surrealistic productions from Wings. This is simply a rock song that moves irresistibly along at mid-tempo, helplessly catching up the listener into the hymn to nature lyrics packaged with a vaguely ominous minor chord progression. Jesus, sounds kind of complicated, doesn't it? Listen to this quote from Paul. I've got no hang-up about going down in history as a great songwriter. I really don't care, Paul. I don't believe that. People magazine cover. I like Linda. Linda looks so sweet there. Nice picture. Welcome to Japan. Wings, the greatest concerts at Budokan, Tokyo. Sold out. This is a nice ad for Venus and Mars Rock Show, Magneto and Titanium Man, the new single by Wings from the album Venus and Mars. That's pretty cool. Now, here's a little bit talking about the Venus and Mars album, which I love. I put it in my top list of top McCartney albums. What the heck is this? What's the difference between New Orleans and Lagos? In New Orleans, the locals will do anything Paulie tells them to. He tells them to do all kinds of boring stuff. Wow. They really were anti-McCartney. Some of the McCartney purists really have it right. When they first started playing this album on the radio, I was pretty down on it. It's certainly not another band on the run. What it is, however, is an intelligent look at rock hysteria from the spectator seat, combined with a bunch of other songs that are pretty darn good. I had to listen to this album for over a week before it actually reached out and caught my attention. Side 1 is very, very good. For some reason, Paul gets lazy on side 2 of his albums. So, I guess it's a pretty good review. Here's a review of Speed of Sound. It phases wings out of currency. The album's themes, banality, disparity, pretension, and amateurism, construct an eloquently conceptualized adventure into pitiful self-mockery. Saddest thing is, Paul and Linda McCartney, pop music's bionic man and woman, are so incurably self-absorbed to realize that their finished product, the oral equivalent of Alba 77, not only represents the worst Beatle-related offering, but pop music at a drastic nadir. Wow, it's really savage. I know people like Matthew Smith, hello Matthew, will agree with this, but wow, this is too harsh. Speed of Sound's 11 clinkers, 9 of which are McCartney originals, underline Paul's stained pop vision. Ever since the solo debut McCartney in '70, he's been trying to elevate simple-minded pop to artsy, credible music. Fair enough, it has sometimes worked. Take particular songs from McCartney, Ram, Wildlife, Red Rose Speedway, Band on the Run, and Venus and Mars. But overall, his plans have crumbled. What he gained by technical sophistication and innocuously cute lyrical sentimentality, he lost immeasurably in emotion and believability, special thanks to the increased use of Linda's questionable talents. Oh my God. End effect, annoyingly pretentious teeny bopper burlesque, which is essentially why similarly childish but nonetheless unpretentious songs such as the Bay City Rollers' Saturday Night, the Monkees' Last Train to Clarksville, the Archie Sugar Sugar, and the Carpenters' Rainy Days and Mondays rank higher than most of Paul's post-Beatle work. Coolly calculated Paul strains while those cosmeticized boys in plaid and Richard and Karen, ultra-bright, perform effortlessly. They're lightweight pop purveyors and simply don't know how to create viable art. Paul, I suspect, does. Sings Paul, also the LP's producer on Silly Love Songs. Some people want to fill the world with silly love songs, and what's wrong with that, I'd like to know, because here I go again. I love you. Want to really know what's wrong with that? For an artist with the brains behind the sensitive, the long and winding road, and maybe I'm amazed, this particular song is embarrassingly trivial, dispassionate. That's the point of it, you knucklehead. The point is supposed to be that it's simple. A simple love song to contradict the critics putting down him writing silly love songs. Anyway, oh my God. I'm just mesmerized by this because I didn't realize that he was so slammed, Paul. A lot of people said that, you know. Now here's like another one. And by the way, the guy who wrote this bunch of bullshit is Mitchell Schneider. And here's another one by Bob Kirsch. Wings at the Speed of Sound. This is not a spectacular album in the same sense as Band on the Run, but etc., etc. In the long run, however, this deceptively easy to listen to set may be recognized as one of McCartney and Company's better overall efforts. Good, there you go. No, I mean, I realize, I'm not a big fanatic over Speed of Sound as a whole, but here we go. Let 'Em In, She's My Baby, and Silly Love Songs are the standouts in the easy vein. All three incorporate catchy melodies that are easy to remember and listenable. That's all it has to be, folks. That's all it has to be. Now, what's wrong with that? I'd like to know. Anyway, McCartney album, a tour preview. McCartney Wings plan U.S. flight. Another Speed of Sound review. The album is a sneaky one in a way, because first listen does not find any real standouts. So what do you mind? You had 2 #1 hits on there. They were great. Let 'Em In and Silly Love Songs. Anyway. More Wings tickets. Talking about the 76 tour. I think Paul really appealed to a lot of those critics with this tour. I think that really helped him get back on the map. This is some people that wrote into the newspaper, and they write. These are just like readers. What's this? Many of Paul's actions on stage were so sarcastic that they demean serious rock and roll. With John, George, and Ringo behind him and hysterical Beatlemaniacs in the audience, it was acceptable and even cute for Paul to do things like put his feet on top of the piano at the end of a song. But out of that context, Paul's antics come across as being mechanical, unnecessary, and rather silly. In the Nassau Coliseum on Long Island performance, there were other incongruities. In the middle of Richard Corey, someone on stage cracked a joke, and the poignant last line was garbled by the performer's laughter. Also, the opening door chimes of Let 'Em In were interrupted because Let 'Em In was not next on the prepared set. Another song was played instead. What if Keith Richards played the opening licks to Brown Sugar and then stopped because it was a different song was next? Despite this, the show is worth seeing, mostly because Paul's musicianship and songwriting are so good that his material stands up well under any circumstances. Overall, the Wings show is disappointing to those who expected a quality performance by a band formed by one of the fathers of rock and roll. As Paul himself said in Rolling Stone, we came and expected one thing, but it's very different. Really, I don't understand this. This person says, I am heartily nauseous of reviewers saying Wings aren't the Beatles, so why should I waste my time writing about them? I'd like to extend my thanks to Ben Fong Torres for seeing Wings as a contemporary group. She said, this is a woman, I saw Wings at their first Garden concert. There's no denying the fact that the group itself is superb on stage in their unfortunate but hardly surprising role as his backup band. I'm afraid that no matter how often or politely Paul relinquishes a track on an album or his place on the stage, it is still Paul McCartney and Wings. Okay. Oh, yes, if it were possible, I would like to kiss Annie Leibovitz's feet for accomplishing what I knew all along only she could do. Present Paul McCartney as a man, not a 33-year-old choir boy. Look at this guy. This person says, this Suzanne says, and finally, nothing, no new band he, Paul, can concoct can compare with the Beatles. Any devout believer in Beatle hysteria, myself included, has bloody well known this fact in their heart all along. We cannot raise the Beatles from the depths of the 60s. Beatles is yesterday. Rest in peace. Suzanne says this in 1976. It's amazing because I thought that everybody just naturally, accepted Paul in 76. I mean, so anyway, we can go on forever reading a lot of reviews, spending a lot of time on just that. So we're going to go ahead. Here's the Wings at the Speed of Sound advertisement. McCartney, the Beatle with the charm, is back. Here's a good one. The McCartney Rock Show is Tops by William Barber. We weren't sure before, but now we're convinced. Paul McCartney isn't human, after all. Any man who can do what Paul does with his music has got to be an exalted wizard. Okay. I mean, I didn't realize... Here's Paul and Mrs. McCartney. I didn't realize there was so much disdain. I like that picture. Look at Linda getting into it. And contrary to what somebody said, one of those reviewers, I like what Linda brought to Wings. I thought that her harmonies, background singing really helped the songs. This is another review of Wings at the Speed of Sound. First thing it says is Paul had promised us, quote, shit hot rocking, but all we have here is the shit. Oh, wow. There's a real temptation to leave it at that and offer $50 million for a Beatles reunion, but to throw us off, Paul tosses in a few tasty hooks, a little cooing invention to clean up the junk. Of course, the problem with any Paul McCartney release comes in comparing it with that Paul McCartney album In the Sky, the perfect, hard harmonic object which came teasingly within reach on Band on the Run. Jeez. The cat got your tongue, Paul? What does that mean? says it was an interview. It's about an interview. McCartney near his best. Wings at the speed of sound. There's somebody that liked it. Dave Marsh, of course. But that is Paul at his best, especially for that period. McCartney's back with a whole pack of geeks. Here's the Time magazine cover. McCartney comes back. That's when he was touring again. Got the whole article here. I think I have this magazine, the whole thing. That's a nice cover, People magazine. Nice, domestic, personal pictures here. And there's the famous Rolling Stone cover. Always like that cover, too. It's amazing with the comparison to the Beatles. His first American tour, a Beatle on the wing, a band on the run, but not quite the act you've known for all these years. Come on, are you kidding me? The Beatles are done with. No wonder they got furious in the 70s being asked about the Beatles all the time, you know? Well, unsurprisingly, I was going to say there's a lot of Paul here, unsurprisingly, but I'll continue the rest of the Paul. I was going to stop here and go a two-parter for Paul, but McCartney and Wings Rock Boat for Venice. Rock Awards. 1970. It's called Instant History. No sooner do Paul McCartney and Wings finish their hugely successful tour than a live album commemorating it is readied. Talking about Wings Over America coming. Elton, Paul, and the election returns. Ringo Starr was in the crowd. This is July 76. John and Yoko stayed in bed. Oh, Ringo looks drunk. Holy mackerel. Linda McCartney, quote, "Why don't they say Denny Lane sings flat?" Huh? In San Francisco, she also was accused of singing flat and responded characteristically, "Why do they have to say that? Why don't they say Denny Lane sings flat? Because he does, sometimes." Wow. Paul McCartney, live, a 3-record set, the most exciting live album you'll ever hear. It's not too far off from the truth. McCartney, we've only just begun. Now, I noticed as I was going through the scrapbook, there were a whole bunch of clips here that were not ever glued in here. So, that, there's a lot here. I can't really I could go through them all, but, Linda McCartney's had it with posers. There's just so much stuff here. Paul McCartney's own, what? Well, you get the idea. So these are not really presented. They're just laying here loosely. So I'm going to leave them that way. And I think, is this where I'm going to take a break? Yeah, I'm going to take a break here, folks. We'll continue the next one soon. Be on the lookout for it.